Hi all, welcome to the course Designing AI-driven Personalized and Adaptive Learning Environment. I, Jyoti Shah. So before starting the session, I would like to ask a question. Just think about last time when you learned any difficult concepts, maybe a new research topic, maybe a statistical methods. Did you have someone sitting next to you and helping you how to learn, making you stop and think and reflect what is your understanding, making you to think about the concepts, not just reading? Probably not, and that's the problem solved by many adaptive learning environments. So, today in the session 6.2, we are going to see the existing ITS, that is Intelligent Tutoring Systems, or we can call it as a Personalized Adaptive Learning Environment. One of the adaptive learning environment is a MetaTutor. So, MetaTutor is designed and developed by Azevedo and his team. So, it is a existing learning environment well researched about more than a decade. So, today we are going to see what is MetaTutor. So, MetaTutor is a hypermedia based intelligent tutoring system. We can call it as a ITS, or we can call it as a personalized and adaptive learning environment. We will see how this learning environment works. These learning environments support learners to learn complex science topics like human circulatory system. It has a multi-agent architecture. Along with the cognition, MetaTutor scaffolds students' metacognition. What is metacognition? It helps students for the metacognitive strategies like planning, monitoring, evaluation. MetaTutor helps to detect, track, model and foster metacognitive strategies. Just I said, like planning, monitoring or evaluating. It helps for adaptive scaffolding as per individual learner needs. So we will see what is this MetaTutor. There are two purposes for this tool. One is a learning tool and the research tool. Learning tool which teaches and trains students to self-regulate by modeling, metacognitive monitoring and facilitating effective learning strategies for human circulatory system. It also helps as a research tool. It collects multimodal data on students' cognitive, metacognitive, affective and motivational processes during learning, so that as a researcher we got to know the overall learning path of the students and how they learn that concept. Now we will see the system architecture. In MetaTutor, personalization operates at two levels. The one is a structural personalization and other one is a dynamic and real-time adaptivity. In a structural personalization, learner sets their own learning path. The two different students have the two different learning path. The two students learn the same concepts with the different learning path, and that is the personalization based on their previous knowledge, based on their learning. There is a different learning path. So, MetaTutor allows every learner to learn by the different learning paths. Now, the next level is the dynamic and real-time adaptivity. So, this system uses the behavioral data of learners to decide whether and when to intervene. It collects the behavioral data, real-time behavioral data of the learners, and based on that behavioral data, it decides whether and when to intervene, whether and when to give the prompts and the feedback to the learner. Now, this is the basic architecture of the system. As we have already learned what is personalized and adaptive learning environment, and in that the different models are working like domain model, learner model and pedagogical models. In this system, there is a domain model. The domain, it is a circulatory systems. So, in the domain model, the system consists of 48 reading material pages plus images on circulatory system. There is no video but only the reading materials and different images of the circulatory systems, the parts of the circulatory systems. Now, the next is the learner model. In the learner model, system itself tracks the cognitive, metacognitive, SRL processes of the learners, their behavioral data, how students learn the circulatory system from a different learning path. So, their cognitive, metacognitive, cognitive means how they read, how much time they read the learning material, they look at the images or not, whether they have used the metacognitive strategies like planning, monitoring, or whether they have evaluated their result and different SRL processes. So, in the learner model, this system tracks everything about that learner. Then the next is the pedagogical agent. This is the main crux of this system. This system uses 4 pedagogical agents. These are the 4 animated agents which provides adaptive scaffolding. So, based on the learner model, based on the learning behavior of that students or that participants, the 4 pedagogical agents provide the adaptive scaffolding. We will see in the next PPT what are these different pedagogical agents and how they work. There is a dialogue system is also available in the system architecture. The dialogue system provides text to speech and script management. What is text to speech? Whatever the pedagogical agents are engaging with the learners, that engagement is text to speech and script management, that is managed by this dialogue system. Now, in the system architecture, these are the domain model, learner model and pedagogical models. Along with this system is used to collect the multimodal data. Now, which type of a multimodal data it collects? For example, it collects the log files. Log files mean the behavior, interaction behavior of that learners, interaction behavior with the system. That the clickstream data it collects. Then eye tracking data. The learners eye tracking data also collected, where these learners are looking, whether they are looking at the learning material, whether they are looking at the diagram or they are looking at the other part of the system. This system also collect the data of facial expression to find out the affective state of the students. Then screen recordings and self-reports. There are different self-reports are also collected through this system. Now we'll deep dive into this learning environment. So this is the learning environment. This is the screenshot of the learning environment. We can see this learning environment is divided into different parts, that is part A, B, C, D, E. This is the F part and this is the G part. So what is this? This is the learning environment created to learn circulatory system, human circulatory system. In this human circulatory system, there is a learning material and it is a reading learning material is available along with the diagrams. With this learning material, there are different agents are available, that is animated pedagogical agents are available. These agents scaffolds learners in their different phases of the learning. So different agent will come in the picture and they'll help to learners or they'll scaffold or feedback to the learners in a different learning stages. So we will see one by one what is this part of this learning environment. So the first one is the countdown timer. Here we can see the countdown timer. The countdown timer tracks the time and that is 2-hour learning sessions. The next is table of contents. In the table of contents, learner can see the table of contents, the different topics which is related to the human circulatory systems and the subtopics. So this is at the right hand side of the learning environment. Next is the C section. That C section gives the detailed diagram of the part of the human circulatory systems. This is a D section. It is the center panel with the reading content. So there are total 48 pages reading content is available at the center panel in the learning environment. So next is the dialogue history. Dialogue history, it is the log history of the agent, where agent and learner can communicate with each other, they can engage with each other, and in this panel we can see their interaction log history. And then next is the SRL palette. At the right hand side of this learning environment screen, we can see the SRL palette, where we can see the students, how the learners plan, how they monitor, they can evaluate their learning environment, as well as how they apply the learning strategies. For example, they can take notes, make an inferences, and summarize their learning. So this is the learning environment. These are the different parts of this learning environment. Now next, the main crux of this learning environment, that is pedagogical agent panel. So at the right hand side corner, at the top right hand side corner, we can see the pedagogical agents. These different 4 pedagogical agents are there, and they interact with the learner. So different pedagogical agents comes at different pedagogical agents appears at a different stage of learning. At the start, one different pedagogical agent comes to introduce the learning environment. At the middle of the learning, the strategizer come to strategize your learning. So at the different learning phases, different agent appears and it interacts with the learner to get the better learning. Now we'll see these 4 pedagogical agents. There are 4 pedagogical agents. These are animated agents. So the first one, Gavin the Guide. Gavin the Guide, it works as a guide. It is a navigation, it helps for the navigation and assessment. The second one is Pam the Planner. Pam the Planner helps planning and goal setting. The third one, Mary the Monitor. Mary the Monitor helps in metacognitive monitoring. For example, it helps in the metacognitive monitoring. It means that it helps learners to assess their learning understanding. Sam the Strategizer is one of the agent which helps in learning strategy use. So we'll see one by one these pedagogical agents. Now, the first one, Gavin the Guide. As I mentioned, Gavin the Guide helps in the navigation and assessment. Gavin the Guide comes at the start of this learning environment. Before starting any learning, Gavin the Guide appears on the screen and it introduces the MetaTutor with demo video of MetaTutor. It helps learner how to navigate to that learning environment. It gives the full idea about this learning environment. So before starting the learning, it completes a pre-test to assess learners' previous knowledge. It again completes the post-test after the learning. So after the learning, Gavin the Guide helps learners to take the post-tests. It helps them to fill out the self-report services. Gavin the Guide helps learners to fill out self-report surveys. This is the only agent whose behavior is constant across all experimental conditions. Now the question arises, what is this experimental condition? Experimental condition where the the learners are divided into different groups. So in MetaTutor research, to assess the impact of this support, the participants or the learners are divided into different groups. Majorly these groups are prompt with feedback groups, then only prompt group and the control group. In a prompt with feedback group, the learner gets the different prompts as well as feedback on their learning and understanding. In prompt only group, the group or the learner gets only the prompt, not the feedback, and the control group. So this kind of a experimental condition is there in research, in MetaTutor research, where participants are divided or the learners are divided in these groups. But only Gavin, the guide agent, whose behavior is constant across all these experimental conditions, and all other three pedagogical agents' behavior or their interaction is changed based on the learner's learning behavior. Now, next agent is the Pam the planner. Pam the planner helps learner to do the planning and goal setting. Pam the planner helps learner to activate learner's prior knowledge before content begins. So she asks learners about their prior knowledge, whether they know about the learners know about circulatory systems or not, and how much part they know. She helps them to guide learners in setting specific and focused learning sub-goal. So here we can see that Pam the planner asks the questions to the learner that please choose another sub-goal. So she helps learner to set their sub-goals. If student or if learner mention the sub-goal is hard, the Pam the planner assess that statement and she helped learners to set the proper and focused sub-goals. If any learner gave a vague answer, she make them to set their focused sub-goals. If any learner mentions they want to learn the hard, she make them to think about the specific sub-goals. For example, blood cells. So, the Pam the planner evaluates the sub-goal quality, and based on the sub-goal quality, she suggests to improve the sub-goals and set the focused sub-goals. These sub-goals set with Pam drive the entire personalized learning path, and she reappears whenever new sub-goals need to be created. Now the next is Mary the monitor. Mary the monitor helps learners in metacognitive monitoring. She gives the different prompts. She gives the prompts to the judgment of learning. For example, she gives the prompt, how well did you understand this? So student can give the answer, and based on their answer, she can monitor their learning. She also asks the question she also gives the prompt which is based on the feeling of knowing, to know what is the feeling of knowing of that learner. How familiar does this content feel? She again gives prompts that is for the content evaluation. Is this relevant to your sub-goal? So, Mary the monitor appears more frequently for struggling learners and less for independent ones. So, whenever in the interaction behavior, if system finds out that any learner is struggling in learning, struggling in judgment of learning, Mary the monitor appears on the screen frequently and help that particular learner. Now, this scaffolding fades as the learner becomes more accurate at self-monitoring. So, once through this learning behavior, system finds out that these learners are accurate at self-monitoring. The accurates at self-monitoring, Mary the monitoring scaffolding fades out. Now, the last agent, that is Sam the strategizer. Sam the strategizer, it is used for the learning strategy use. It detects, so here we can see the Sam the strategizer. Sam the strategizer detects passive reading and it prompts learners for active strategy use. If any learners is struggling in passive reading, Sam the strategizer prompts them for active strategy use. It scaffolds for note taking, summarizing and elaborative interrogations. Sam the strategizer evaluates quality of summaries and give directive corrective feedback. So, whatever learners give the summaries, Sam the strategizer evaluate the quality of that summaries and give directive and corrective feedback to the learner so that learner can rewrite or learner can summarize it well. Sam the strategizer pushes learners from surface level reading to deep processing, and he has the highest impact on learning gains of all four agents. These four agents helps learner in their self-regulated learning so that learner can self-regulate their learning and learn deeply and learn not only the surface level but reading to deep processing and summarize their learning and evaluate their learning. So this research have different key findings. One is that prompt plus feedback gives the best outcomes. So student in the PF conditions, PF that is prompt plus feedback conditions showed significantly higher learning efficiency scores than prompt only or control groups. Second one is the SAM, the strategizer drives gains. As I mentioned, from the four agents, the time spent with Sam the strategizer had greatest impact on proportional learning gains. Then adaptive prompting improves SRL. The key finding is that frequency and quality based adaptive prompting led to better long-term SRL deployment even after scaffolding was faded. Note taking and prior knowledge. So low prior knowledge students benefited from agent SRL scaffolding. Without it, they look more notes verbatim, negatively impacting learner. Emotion modulated PA effectiveness. Emotions modulated PA effectiveness. Personality traits and trait emotion predicted agent directed emotions. Individually differences require personalized PA design, and the eye tracking predict achievements. So these are the key findings of this research. Thank you everyone. This is the reference. Thank you everyone.